Hey y'all, today is July 25th, 2010. The time is 9:13 in the morning, which means it's actually Thursday, July 24th, 9:13 at night, back at home. I know it's been a while since I did another one of these entries, but a lot of stuff has been going on. But the big thing that has happened is last week we went across the border, we left Singapore and went to Malaysia. And Malaysia is a very, very much different country than Singapore, and we really saw that on this trip. Um, we left last Wednesday, and we were going to travel up the entire east coast of Malaysia. So our journey started on Wednesday, and there we stopped and got some breakfast, and at a roti prata place. And roti prata is a type of bread, and it's kind of like a pancake almost. But nevertheless, we ate there, and that really had me feeling kind of bad about the trip, just because of the fact that I realized they don't speak English in Malaysia. And I know that's very American and very stereotypically American, but I thought they spoke some. And when we got there and they didn't speak any, it really, really bothered me. And to a degree, for me, it kind of set the tone of the trip. And for a lot of people, it did also. But nevertheless, we went on. We traveled. The first place we traveled to was Kuantan, and that's southeast Malaysia, kind of sort of. And there we had a good night. We actually went to the beach and released sea turtles at the kind of conservatory. We released sea turtles out into the water, baby sea turtles that had been grown at the facility. We released them out to South China Sea, which was really nice. Um, on the way to Kuantan, we actually stopped at a couple of stands where they made food and you could just buy it on the side of the road, which was really kind of new for me. I mean, you see those kinds of things in rural America, but I felt like it was right on the side of the road, and it was just but a little stand, and not like any big business, just a itty bitty stand with food. They're making food, so I thought that was very, very interesting, and at times kind of irritating actually because it was hot. But I mean, what we got from it was better than the heat, I guess. So, as I said, we are in Kuantan for a night. We stayed in a resort kind of hotel. And we traveled up the coast to Terengganu, which is a state in Malaysia. And we stayed in the main city, Kuala Terengganu, which is city of Terengganu in Malay. The big thing there was we had a homestay with a Malaysian family, and I will talk about that in the second part to this because of time. But that was a true learning experience. It was a true learning experience. We stayed in stayed with the family for a night and really got to see how they live, language barrier and all. And that, I have to say, was probably one of the best portions of the trip. Although it was one of the most trying portions of the trip. And as I said, I'll talk about that in the second part. But it came out to be one of the best experiences of the trip. While we were in Terengganu, we also went to the State Museum, which was heavily uh, Islamic, I guess. A lot of what was talked about in the museum was about Islam and Islamic faith because Malaysia is mostly Muslim. And that's another difference between Singapore and Malaysia because Singapore is, as I said earlier, it's about like America. So you have people of all different faiths here. But you cross the bridge into Malaysia, everybody for the most part is Muslim, and that was different walking around. And all of them had the head coverings, and everyone was covered. And I know that stirred up some controversy in our group because people in our group aren't used to actually have not covered up, but they're not used to having to consciously cover up for cultural standards. So that was very unique. And another thing that was unique for me is when we went to the museum, and whenever we went someplace, a lot of times the women gave the tours, and they go down the line and shake everyone's hand. And when they get to any of the guys, they would just nod. And I learned from that that Muslim women are not allowed to touch other men that aren't their husbands. And that just show how conservative that they are in their religion as compared to other religions. But it was something to get used to, but it was not something that really offended me because there's no reason that it should offend me. I just found it awkward, but it is what it is. So that was a big thing I learned. We also went to the Islamic Mosque Museum kind of sort of thing. It was a big park full of model mosques from all over the world. And on the top, you could see the mosque, and in the bottom, it gives the history of the mosque and the country and the cultures of the country in which the mosque is located. So the only one I actually really remember was the Taj Mahal, and of course it had the inside, and had a little theater and history in the bottom, and then on top you had the actual model of the mosque that you would go outside and go up to see. So they have quite a few of those, and that was interesting. That was interesting. And from there, we left to go to Kota Baru, which is in the state of Kelantan. That is very close to Thailand. If we had gone north for about another hour, we actually would have been in Thailand. So total, we've been driving for about 12 hours on a bus, but it was broken up, so that was good. There, we actually toured an Islamic mosque, and we actually received a lecture from a a Christian convert to Islam. He was Ghanaian, and he was raised Christian, and he converted to Islam. So he gave us a lecture, which was very interesting. Honestly, it was kind of controversial at times because of how it conflicts with Christian ideology and other ideologies, but we learned a lot. And as I said, after that, we toured the Islamic mosque. And while we were touring the Islamic mosque, we actually stopped and we left because we were able to meet the chief minister of the state of Kelantan, which is the equivalent of a governor in the United States. So he talked to us and told us about how, essentially, how Islam is a cornerstone of their government. I know in the U.S. we tend to separate church and state, but there, church and state are one. So it's not even like the church influences the state per se. It does, but it's all a part of each other. So there's no distinct influence. It's just all one. So I found that to be very interesting, and we got a photo op with them, which was nice. And those are the big portions of the trip. The big thing for me was just getting used to the true differences between a lesser developed country and a very much developed country like Singapore or like the US. I mean, even things like your we were on the beach and there was what seemed like sewage going out into the beach. Now, granted, this does happen in the US also. And all the things that we saw do happen in the US, but just seeing the ruralness of it all was just, I won't say shocking, but it made everyone more aware and made everyone more grateful for the conveniences that we have. And I mean, even things like, now this doesn't necessarily speak to poverty, but you walk in a restroom and there's no toilet paper, and that's actually very common. And I think that's actually a cultural thing because I'm gonna get into some of that in part two with the homestay. We also saw a lot of markets, outdoor markets. I wanted to buy some stuff, but a lot of stuff was bootleg. I mean, I even saw a shirt that said Armani Exchange and it had an E at the end of Armani. So I didn't really want to do that, but it was interesting to see, especially all the cultural differences. So overall, the trip to Malaysia was really, 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 really good. As I said, part two is coming soon with the bit about the homestay, which to me was the highlight of my trip. So stick around and thanks for watching.